Minister, a Mental Health Commission report published this morning identifies long-term neglect of people with serious and enduring mental illness in our mental health system. Another in a regular series of highly critical reports from the Mental Health Commission. I was no surprise with that report. One of the most difficult and common situations I deal with are people being released from the Department of Psychiatry without accommodation, without rehabilitation, and end up in a revolving door system where inevitably a number of months later they are put back in to the Department of Psychiatry, a type of patch them up and show them the front door situation. We're in year 13 of a 10-year mental health strategy, yet barely over 50% of recommended staff are in place, less than 10% for those with intellectual disabilities, and in some regions, none. Fianna Fáil, through the Confidence and Supply Agreement, secured an additional $105 million for mental health. Last year's budget, due 2019, $55 million was secured. That was secured previously in 2018. The Department of Health knew that money was coming. Minister Harris signed the document to that effect. Yet $25 million of that money seems to be withheld so far this year in terms of expenditure. This would seem unconscionable. What is the reason for this money being unspent, and where is the ministerial oversight?
Minister.
I'm not sure where this 25 million being withheld by the government from HSE. I saw a tweet from Mental Health Reform to that effect yesterday. I spoke with there isn't 25 million euro being withheld by the government from the HSE. The full 55 million euro, that was an order of government, was made available to the HSE to spend. There is a process where the Department of Health release the funding as it's needed. They don't just throw the 55 million onto the table and say spend that. They release it as it's being spent, and that's the process that you're referring to. But there isn't an issue with withholding any money from that. Some of it will be recurring expenditure, some of it will be in one-off expenditure. As I say, there's 12 million remaining to be spent. We have 2.5 months of the year still to spend that, and I'm meeting with the HSE and the Department of Health next week to further oversee, as I have overseen the expenditure. When you refer to ministerial oversight, I have overseen the expenditure of that money, of indeed the entire 1 billion euro budget over the past 12 months. Regarding your issue about rehab and the MHC report, I'll come back to it in the second.
The final supplementary.
The money being withheld, it came in a parliamentary reply from so it did, said the money was unspent. There was a year's preparation available to ensure that this money was being spent. As in terms of spending money is needed, the money is desperately needed across the entire country. So it is. And there's no reason for that money not to be spent. We have situations right across mental health. The 2001 Mental Health Act, which was due to be updated years ago, is still not updated. We have unqualified consultants practicing in mental health, a practice condemned by the President of the High Court. The majority of mental health facilities remain unregulated. They don't come under the Mental Health Commission's remit. Mental health services in St. Luke's were prosecuted this year. First time ever a mental health facility had to be prosecuted. Suicide remains the greatest cause of death among 15 to 24-year-olds. Primary care psychology is a disaster. 3-year wait in my own county of Wexford. Antidepressant prescription is increasing at an alarming rate. Jigsaw expansion has been held up. When I started here, Tipperary was going to be opened within a few months. We're here now 3.5 years later, it still hasn't. Yet the department cannot spend money. In a department where most ministers for finance seem to suffer from financial incontinence, we have a minister for mental health that seems to suffer from financial constipation.